So, you should be able to hear me. I've just now got to sort out all the other things that don't work because, well, I could tell you a story. As you well know, don't worry the fact that you can see two of me for a minute. I love Rory with all my heart, and I do, because I really, really do. But he decided to take a flying leap off the couch and land on everything, which meant I had to unplug everything, and then it still didn't all work, so I had to do it all again. You're all set to that, that's right. And like all of these things, you're trying to remember where you need to set everything, because I could just stop and start everything. That's using the right device. That normally kind of works. Is it on here? Maybe. But that looks right. Let me just kind of go to. Try that. Nope. So little avatar me is not talking again, but as I can tell, I can see that the voice is moving, so you should be able to hear me. That's the important part of it all, I guess. Anyway, let's try it. No, you're not doing it either. For goodness sake. It's just so yeah. Anyway, so sorry, I'm just sticking some cream on my hands because my and that's not working either. Excellent. So the voice to my earphones isn't going to my earphones. Bear with me one moment while I try and work out why that is. Just the problem with so much of this is you can only really tell when you're actually live, because until you're actually doing it, the tests don't test, if that makes any sense.
Hear what I type is wrong.
Yeah, that I know. That's what I'm trying to fix, Christy. The problem is that where the fuck are the settings? This thing's got more settings than settings, and actually finding the bit where it does it. It's something of that. Output 2. Let's go with. Don't show me disconnected shit. Show me the stuff that's actually working. That's not it. I know what I'm looking for, but all the ones that I'm looking at say they're disconnected. I don't think they are. Actually, they might be. Hang on. It might be on something. Hang on. Bluetooth. That's what I want. Yeah. Oh no. Connected. Okay. Let me. Bear with me. Do you know there are times when you just really don't have the will to live to do this? Everything's just not. Everything's just more complicated than it really, really needs to be. Go to. Stop telling me it's all disconnected. That one. Christy, as you're awake, can you type something at me, please? Hopefully, you'd... And Bailey, but that is exactly how this feels. Is that I am sitting in the same couch, in front of the same computer, in front of the same table, with the same shit on the same table. And yes, I had to unplug some stuff because Rory he took a flying leap, landed on the craft table. Fortunately, he landed on the bit to the right of the lace pillow, so no lace was harmed in Rory's escapades. But he did annihilate things like where my headphones was, my work phone, my work laptop, and my desktop, which lived kind of just behind it. And although no actual harm came to anything, lots of things stopped working on my desktop. Suddenly I had no sound. My microphone didn't seem to be connected anymore, even though it didn't actually land on any of the cables, you understand. But somehow it all kind of went wonky, so I unplugged everything, plugged it all back in. Some shit worked, some shit didn't. Then my Stream Deck wasn't working. And there's just this kind of like... I'm too old for this crap. Seriously, people, I'm too old for this crap. Well, so with any luck, you are now not hearing my text-to-speech stuff, so that you don't get the confusion, and I get you in my ear, because you're in my ear, I know that much, so that's a good sign. So although my lips aren't moving, minor detail, we can all live with that. See, look, there you go, there's me. My camera's still working, that's a good start. Excellent. Something works at least. So, I do apologise profusely for not streaming last week. I had a bit of a snooze, and when I woke up, it was about 6 o'clock at night. I absolutely have no idea what happened to last Friday afternoon. It just completely spin. And to be fair, I think if I'd laid down an hour ago, I wouldn't be here now. It is a little bit, I'm afraid. And the problem is actually hiding it is harder than it sounds. Well, it's not. Hang on. Let me go back to... The problem is, due to that issue I had a little while ago, I then can't click on some things that I used to click on without it going nuts. So, hang on, let me do this. Where am I? Have it on me. There you go. Let's get rid of me to avoid the confusion. There you go. Hey, Netkisser, how are you? So, as I say, I'm really sorry I didn't stream last week. I was proper knackered. But I have kind of been busy. So, let me pull up a thing. Where'd that go? Goodness sake. You've got 3 things in a list. It's on none of them. Click once and it's then at the bottom one. That's not what I need, is it? So, I know this is going to look a little bit bad because, well, it just will. But, I've been doing some of my cross stitch. I am slightly further across now than that. Hang on. I am down to about here. so I did one more bit. But so I've been doing some cross stitch. This afternoon, a parcel arrived, and remember I was saying how the stand for my cross stitch frame is about the size of a piano? Seriously, I've got a loom that's smaller than that, and it's a bit cumbersome. Well, I got a desktop one that you can screw onto a table and adjust the width because you just move them around. And that arrived today. And in true flat pack style, some of the holes weren't drilled quite accurately. So trying to get 3 metal screws through some holes, through some poles, into a little knobby turny thing, when they're supposed to be equidistant, but they ain't. And so kind of one screw kind of needs to go that way, one screw kind of needs to go that way, and this one is kind of too low or too high, whichever way, you know. And you're just kind of like, oh. Fortunately, the metal that it's made from is softer than it looks, because as we know, it's aluminium, and it's, you know, or was it steel? One or the other. Either way, the trusty Allen keys that came with it are made of harder stuff. So I basically just kind of ground around a bit at the side that was giving me shit, and so I've now managed to put that together. And it can go on either my computer table or on the edge of this, so that I can put it in front of the thing and work on it. This will obviously be quite good because, you know, light and everything. What else have I been up to? As you know, I like learning new things. It is part of me. And, well, a good few years ago, it must be probably 8 years ago, I tried really hard to make something in Blender. And for the first day, I faffed around, swore like a navvy, because, like so many things, to achieve the same thing as you do in other things, you have to use completely different keys, completely different this, completely different that. And for anyone who's ever done maths, if this is a grid, you've got X is across, Y is depth, X is across, Y is up and down, and Z is depth. So if you have an XY graph, it's kind of a U shape looking at you. Not in Blender it ain't. No. In Unity, yeah it is. Great. So I really didn't take any time to adjust that, because, well, that fitted my mathematical stuff I did at school. No, in Blender, Y is back to front, Z is up. It's a bit like do you remember if you did physics, you had the planey thing, and you had the left hand and the right hand rule? It's exactly that. One's the left hand rule, one's the right hand rule, and you're like, okay. And you never remembered which way round was for what anyway. But it just makes life complicated, because every time you go, right, I want to go up. No, it's not Y. So you do a bit of that. But I have been making things. Now, I am not going to pretend that the things I made were great and glorious, because it's not a thing, right? It is distinctly so not a thing. However, I am still yet proud of the things that I have done. So last time I did it, like 8 years ago, as I said, I made a well. Now, when I say I made a well, I mean, like, you know, water well in the garden kind of well. It took a small lifetime. Now, the following picture, I'm going to show you a couple, actually. The following pictures are, I am not going to say works of art, because, well, that's distinctly not a thing. So the first thing I made was this dude. So there he is, bit of an old dude with a torch, You'll see why he has a torch in a minute. But I made a dude. Now, compared to the well, this took next to no time at all, considering it was the first time I'd looked at blenders since the well. We then set about making a monster, a street, and the dude. Hence, he's got a torch, because, well, it's going to be dark. I then managed to make it dark. Now, this was... where's my pictures gone? This was kind of okay. And to be honest, I kind of liked this picture. This picture worked out nice. But they insisted we added some fog. And, well, it's a bit dark for fog, because you can't really see much of his detail. I mean, we bothered putting a face on him. Why? You can't see it. But I made a man and a monster. It's a static. It was designed to be a static image. But I made man and a monster, right? Well, I then set about making this dude. Now, don't worry about all the squiggly bits, but I made this dude. And I wanted to animate it. Now, I wasn't following a course for this. I was making it up. And I'm going to show you what happens when Liz makes it up. Play it, can you? You going to play it? His head didn't quite work, as you can see. So, and his waist is a little bit funky. But I have a animated dude. I'm still proud of him. I mean, he has character, you can't deny that. So, I'm going to show you what I'm currently working on. So, I have made, they don't look very exciting, I am aware of that. I have made a barrel and a crate and 3 columns that all look like they've got a bit of history behind them, i.e. they're not brand new. The barrel, everything has got a little bit of wonk to it, so there's a chunk missing out of it. The band going around the barrel's not entirely straight, although it probably could do with a little bit more editing than that. Looking at it now, it looks a lot straighter than it actually is. Hang on. One of the things that I do struggle with Blender is the codes to move around the screen. But, you know, some of these bits are fatter, some of them are thinner. The barrel, the crate, I really like my crate. The crate, the fact that the lines aren't all straight, and I like it. Now, I am going to say, it did not take me as long as I might have thought. If you'd asked me how long it would take to do that little bit there, you know, in the days of the well, I would have said a couple of weeks. It seriously took me that long to do a well. And especially when you consider that the well, you made a brick and then you placed it in like concentric, you know, a number of circles till it was height, added a couple of posts, made like the little wooden roof structure shape, made a roof tile, and then splattered it all over the roof. We are not talking, you know, hand sculpted, you know, each individual tile was new. No. The same tile over and over and over and over and over and over. And same was true with the bricks. So, not exactly, you know, great. And so it is kind of weird to me that these have not taken that long. They haven't got any colours, so, you know, they look a little bit anemic, which doesn't help. But yeah, I'm feeling kind of pleased. That, you know, they all look, you know, they look like they've got some history. They look, you know, well, they look like they'd fit in with a lot of the Cinti low poly stuff, which would be cool. Because, well, that would be cool. And so I have been doing that. Assembling the desk thing was a challenge. Now, I need to point out the disc thing really isn't that hard. It's a clamp that's got a post that you attach to it with another post that sits on like a hemisphere with like drilled holes in it, and you screw through the holes to the one in the middle that never moves because that's the pivot point, and then you've got two either side to clamp it onto the strut that's going not that way but that will be the actual bed for your frame and that you're going to adjust the angle of. So you have one in the middle that permanently wiggles, two at either side that then never move ever again, and one at the bottom, which is how you move the angle. I mean, we're not talking, complicated stuff. But the problem is they use these little metal clampy things. And the problem with the little metal clampy thing is that it's a bit like a hair grip in that it's kind of that shaped. And the idea is you loosen it a bit so that you can slide it up and down the metal rod or whatever it is that it is attached to. The problem is you can't just release one side so it can only slide up and down the metal rod. Because if you release it enough to move up the metal rod, it usually falls off the other half that it was attached to. So you need like 3 pairs of hands, one to kind of slightly undo it, the other 2 to kind of move it around and keep everything together. And when you're trying to screw it all on, of course you need one to hold the back, one to hold the front, and then one to find the hole with the Allen key and tighten it up. So it is a feat of mayhem. And the other thing that was a problem that I found this time round was the instructions. The instructions. Let me show you the great and glorious instructions. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, we're not exactly talking rocket science shit here. I'm still trying to work out how this can move backwards and forwards 30 centimetres when there's... Well, mine's got 4 holes, so I can move it backwards and forwards the distance between 2 of the holes, because I could move it this backwards and forwards, but not this. This can go up and down, but so if that's 30 centimetres, but this can't move 50, so I don't really I assume it means that is 30 centimetres long and that is 50 centimetres long, and doesn't actually tell you how adjustable it is. But the instructions are, and I don't have TikTok, and unlike, say, Instagram or whatever, that if you get a thing that says go here, you can still see it. If your phone or whatever wants to play ball and read that, it takes you to TikTok and then says, do you want to open the app? But it doesn't take you to the bloody video. And I don't have the app, can't be asked to sign up, so I didn't get to watch the instructions. So, I mean... But then again, one stupid metal clampy thing, another stupid metal clampy thing, the 4 bits that join on, and a clampy thing at the end to stop your frame falling off. We are not talking overly complicated. But to join this to this and to the clamp, you need 2 pairs of hands. Once it's joined, putting this one in, piece of piss. This was the bit where I joined it in the middle, but then couldn't get on one of them this one on, and on the other one I'd done the 2 end ones because they were never going to move, and the middle one didn't entirely fit, and so I had a bit of a wiggle around to try and make that work, but I did manage to do it without too much grief. But it just I shouldn't be doing these things on a Friday afternoon when I'm, I've done my week's work and I want an easy life. I really shouldn't, because it's clearly not going to go too well. And, well, I was really tired by the time I'd finished. And yet, here I am. So, just to remind everybody, because you know how much I love to do this, Monsters and Memories stress test, 6 o'clock tonight, so that's in about 3.5 hours. Please come, help them stress their game. They're a lovely bunch, so I definitely recommend coming to the stress test. Let me move that before mayhem ensues. This is the problem when Rory knocks everything off. Nothing's where I left it. And right now, not that I can entirely show you, but if I stick my right hand out, you'll notice I'm not really in front of my pillow. Normally my right hand's kind of over here. But in front of me, well, actually in front of me is a bit more off camera, but if I turn a bit, so I am parallel with the table, even though I'm naturally not parallel with the table, I'm sitting very much to the left. There's a reason for that. One's brown and one's black. And they're sitting on my bit of the couch in front of the lace pillow. So this is going to be kind of uncomfortable to do, because I can't sit in front of it. And oh, did I wait? That's the furriest dog. Dear me. You'd have thought I'd stolen the bonios. Seriously, animal? Oh, stretch, and goes back to sleep. Rory's giving me the evil eye. So clearly, I'm going to be working at a stupid angle, which is going to make my back hurt. And I can't get any closer because, well, there's dogs in the way. So, not sure how much of this we're going to get done today. But we can try. That's the important part. Try. I need to tidy up a bit more because, well, everything's kind of all wonky. Do I even need these yet? Why does that look weird? Why do you look weird? Oh, it's because it's the tacking underneath. Right. I actually don't need this one. After all that, after looking at it, and I don't need that one yet. I have been suffering. Do you remember I went through a long spate of having a great amount of pain in this finger around about here? So not in my joint, because that would be sensible, but round about here. Well, that's kind of shut up now, but now it's down here on my wrist, and today this kind of, not quite the joint of my thumb, but kind of either side of it is grumpy. Hence I was putting cream on my hands, because, you know, viva the cream of sorting out joints. I mean, having done a bit of a Google to see if I had, like, you know, I needed more vitamins, or, you know, if I'd broken it or something interesting. Pretty confident I hadn't broken anything, because none of them had got a really funky colour. But it was more that, you know, Google is of the opinion that it is a soft tissue damage, and because it is things like, if I pick something heavy up, not that I've really got anything heavy, excuse me, phone. If I pick up something like my phone, the pressure of this thumb stopping my phone from tipping out my hand can make this part of my hand quite sore. So it said, you know, if things like that make it sore, chances are is it's almost certainly just some soft tissue strain bruising, infection kind of thing. Deal with it is the short answer. So that's what we're doing. Now, obviously, if it goes on for forever and, you know, all these things, but like a lot of these things, there is a high chance that it does not heal itself in 10 minutes. And that, you know, it will come and go a bit, and then eventually you'll realise you haven't seen it for a while. So, which is fine. I can cope with that. As long as it, you know, does eventually wear off, that's kind of my important factor. Can't see the hole. Yeah, there should be some holes around here somewhere. And I also got something else to show you as well. See, that doesn't feel like the right spot. I think it is. It's not right. Goodness sake. Oh, my God. Excuse me. I'm going to see if this helps. I've got a thing. If it helps, I'll show you. I didn't get it for this, but as a byproduct, it could be helpful for this. So we shall see. Possibly not. Sadly, no. But I'll show you what it is anyway. When you all come back from adverts, which will be awesome. So, right, hopefully you're all back from adverts, if you indeed left. So, I did have one other thing I got this week, and certainly from where I'm sitting right now, this is not of an aid. But if this is, she says noticing all the fingerprints on it, but never mind. This is basically, as you can see through the lenses there, it's a magnifying thing. Now, I got it from a cross stitch. And part of the problem is that for the multiplying factor to work, it has, for anyone who's messed around with magnifying glasses, you'll know that when you multiply something, your focal distance moves. Now, that's not that you can't use it over a long distance. Hello, binoculars. But it means that you have to kind of trick yourself, excuse me, into focusing on the right point to make the right thing focused. And from where I'm sitting, only one of my eyeballs can actually focus on my lace work with that on, because of course it is really designed to be focused on something kind of at reading distance. So I'm not too surprised. And I think if I was sitting where I normally sit and could lean forward slightly, excuse me, I'm gonna have to stick this up. It just kind of, it might be useful, but today, kind of with, you know, realistically, that is my arm out straight. I for me to get to the back thing, I'm having to lean considerably forward because I am sitting over here and not over there. So, and of course, should the fur bags here in Anton, Nova Scotia, and vacate my seat, I will move. But right now, squirm. If anything, they're making it even more complicated. Now, part of the reasoning for this is, hang on, you see it. This is a duvet with a furry fabric cover on it, which is great for keeping the draft from the garden off my legs. But it's also fluffy and squashy, and the dogs love it. So the dogs have taken up residence on the other end. And, well, that's kind of what's hampering me, is the fact that they're on top of the other end. So, and in the way. Wretched animals. Oh, my thumb. Seriously, it's surprising how much my thumbs could hurt. Worst thing is the only one I've ever done any grief to is this one. So the fact that this one's hurting a bit doesn't really bother me because, well, I broke that one. I've never done anything to this one. This one has an easy life, you know, in comparison. No, don't disappear down the frigging hole. See, the only thing I don't like about these is the fact that the distance between the hole, you know, I can put my fingers down there. If the hole's a bit big, you're going to move. Amy, that's... I wasn't sure you could find much more of an inconvenient spot. She's now standing on my lap. Oh no, now trying to lie on my lap and Rory's head. This is going to go well, isn't it? You're lying on his head. Oh, thank you for that. Little one. Don't give me I'm comfy now looks. Yawn. Grind. Slop. You are not hard done for, my lady. You are not. You have... Oh, yawn. Yeah, I know, yawn. I'm the one that's done work today. Oh, now you're standing on his head. Oh, no, now you've moved so that basically if you fart, he's going to directly take a full whack. She's literally got a butthole on his face. It's not very ladylike. No, it's not. And much as I love you, and you're cute, yes. Can you back off? Darling. She's been a bit clingy this week, which is a bit weird for her, as you well know, because we don't normally sit still long enough to get huggies. Stop licking my hands. woman. Especially as I put cream on my hands. I do. I do care. I really, really do. I do, yes. But I would kind of like to do some of this because I didn't even do any last week, no. And just as I was beginning to think I might be in the good mood to do more days, I did even less. Yes. Now, I don't really want to boot you off. No, I don't. Mind you, you're head and half warm. I could cook toast on that. I've eaten food that was colder than that. And we're not talking ice cream either. I'm talking cooked dinners that weren't that hot. You got a headache? Is that part of your problem? I've never forgotten the time. Here in the UK, we don't get quite a few of the... Come on! Both of you, out! Move! Let me sit in my spot. That's a bit better. Look! Both hands! Right. We don't get a lot of American food. And sometimes, if you do, you're not entirely convinced that they are overly authentically American foods, or whether they're some cheap knockoff crap that is packaged the same and called American, but not, if you know what I mean, right? And a bit like if you buy British foods in America, sometimes the foods that the natural American one is actually a different ingredient set than the UK of the same item. And you know, you come over to the UK and it will taste different and all the rest of it. Well, I bought Cheetos. Because, well, frankly, a lot of Americans bang on about Cheetos and how great Cheetos are. And I bought a pack of Cheetos. In fact, I bought 2 packs of Cheetos. I bought normal Cheetos and some hot Cheetos. Hello, Tenchy. Anyway, Tenchy of all people understand this one. So I ate about half the bag of Cheetos. And wasn't overly impressed. They didn't really taste of cheese. I was led to believe that they were cheesy. I mean, my hands got covered in Cheeto dust, but see, yeah. Well, you see, this is kind of where it was going, is that, you know, as I did sort of preface it with the fact that if you buy European stuff in America, it's not always the same recipe. You have to buy it here to know. And the stuff we get that's allegedly American, we can't prove whether it's the same shit you get or not. Anyway, I ate half this bag of Cheetos, and it was just kind of bland and boring. It didn't really taste of anything. So I tried the hot ones. And I ate about half the bag of hot ones. And again, fingers were, you know, kind of pillar box red. But didn't really taste nothing. And they certainly, hot was not the word that came to mind. Anyway, I gave up on that. And about 20 minutes later, I had a bitch of a headache. And I didn't really associate it overly with the Cheetos until I decided to feed some of the Cheetos to the dogs because, well, the bags were open. I didn't really fancy finishing them off. Probably. Anyway, as I say, I fed some of the Cheetos to the dogs and did my best to eat a few along the way. And about 20 minutes later, Amy looked at me like a man with a severe hangover. She had a fucking migraine and all. She got a bitching migraine stroke headache from the Cheetos too. It wasn't just me. I was flabbergasted. I've never seen a dog knowingly have a headache. But you could see it on her. Every sound made her kind of wince and duck, and she kind of squinted if it was bright, because it was too bright for her. It was exactly the look on my face that I'm sure I pull when I've got a migraine. That's all I could see in her face. Poor little girl. So, you know, I do worry for her, because, you know, if she is prone to getting headaches or whatever, then, you know, maybe, you know, she's got a headache and I'm just kind of being, I won't say mean, but, you know, for want of a better word, potentially mean. And kind of, you know, so I don't want to be too mean to her, but at the same time, you know, busy. This table's doing it again. It's doing it'll go down that way with the merest press of a finger, but takes an awful lot to bring it back up. I assume it's got twisted underneath. Yeah, it has a bit. It has an axis, but the axis is 180. It's not 90 degrees or anything. So if it goes that way, it should go that way with equal vigour. But I guess obviously maybe the corner I've got is not as equally opposing as I thought it could be. I need to lengthen something. I do know that the American food standards is quite considerably different to Europe, because you guys put sugar in your bread. And I'm not talking like, you know, half a teaspoon just to kick the yeast into gear. No, you're talking like, you know, cups of the stuff. Well, an awful lot of the problem, I think, Christy, with American food, and I'm sure Tenchi can back us up on this. Tenchi, without outing Tenchi mostly lives in America, but I think was British, or at least has come to Britain on many occasions, and so has seen more than just the American point of view, right? And so, you know, it is that kind of moment. But one of the things that one of the things that is very clear to me in an awful lot of the American ingredients lists is they literally add corn syrup to everything. I swear they add it to your water. No, Rory, get off. Bugger off. You can't sit on my lap. There is no room. There is no room while I'm doing lace making, and you can't fit up the other side. Ugh. Hang on, incoming dog, come on. Yeah, you add like 16 sugars to everything, right? You know, I mean, we always laugh about some of the stuff here in the UK when it's got sugar, dextrose, fructose, and it's like, so sugar, and sugar. But you guys invented sugars just to add to your sugars, you know? But there was a thing I saw quite recently that was about bread, and how in one kind of average slice of bread, you've got as much sugar as the UK has in the entire loaf, right? And as a result, it makes all of our sandwiches taste different, which is part of the reason we put butter on shit, is because, well, we can taste it. You know, and it is kind of weird in that until recently, so I'm talking, when I say recently, last 10 years is recent, because I'm old now. While we all had heard that American chocolate was different to British chocolate, I think many of us struggled to comprehend how it could be particularly different. I mean, you know, obviously it is Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand the sugar. I mean, preservatives of some form, yeah. Pre-processed shit, yeah, I get that. But the fact that, you know, you'd add kind of like 58 gallons of sugar to, as I say, I swear you all but put it in your bottled water, just seems a level you didn't need. Now, I do know that an awful lot of it was to encourage the farmers not to give up farming, and that the government pays them for growing corn to make corn syrup. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, Britain is not exactly lacking in the following area, but because we Britons are getting fat too, but as a nation of people who are kind of world recognised for the chub factor of a large percentage of your population. You know, some of the people over there have achieved, frankly, planetoid level status of their vastness. And the fact that basically, if there's a shop, it's going to have takeout in one of them. It does seem really bizarre that you would put quite so much sugar in literally everything. I mean, it's almost like you'd spray paint your vegetables and fruit with sugar. It just seems that level of insanity. Now, everyone likes a candied apple, right? No, everyone likes what we call toffee apples. Americans call candied apples. Everyone loves, you know, because we do. Yeah, once a year. But it does seem that, you know, it's almost like if you licked your shoes, are they coated in sugar? Because you seem to use it in everything else. It just kind of has that. As a, the Brits used to do it with salt. We used to be very much add salt to everything. When in doubt, salt was flavour, right? And that's not entirely an unfounded sentiment, but you know, it's. I guess every nation has their own weakness, shall we call it? That thing that everyone seems to add to something for the sake of, don't know quite what to do to make it taste better. Oh, we'll add some of this, you know. And it's not always logical or good for you. And I still haven't got a new pair of glasses because, well, I haven't. Still haven't got an MOT for my car, but then I'm not driving it, so I don't feel too bad about that. Because, well, I can't drive it because the battery's not got enough to go. I have got a charger. Got the charger now. I just haven't gone to the car and unplugged enough of things and got it to a power socket so that I can charge it up and do things with it. And then I need to go and get an MOT with it, and then I can do stuff with it. Alright, hang on, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, but I've just never forgotten the look on poor Amy's face after she'd eaten what must have been barely a handful of Cheetos. Because obviously I wasn't going to feed them a half packet of frigging Cheetos. I'm not that bad. But the fact that she got a severe headache from that really kind of summed up a lot for me. Because, of course, I had a severe headache from eating the Cheetos. But I get migraines. I'm kind of used to that. But I've never seen a dog with such a clear look on its face that it had the exact same headache that I did. And I've never had migraines or headaches from eating food before. I don't really have a food sensitivity headache. I just have headaches because it's a day with a Y in it and my brain's in a mood. I've been reading up on a lot of, well, I watch an awful lot of videos and read a lot of crap. And one of the things that I was reading about is, now, I think I mentioned this last time we were on stream, was that if you close your eyes, what do you see? And I asked a few people at work and got, as expected, a varied response. People who have and do suffer migraines tend to see something. People who have never had a migraine generally seem to see just black, right? I have never seen just black, and I never associated it with potentially anything to do with migraines. Now, of course, it's not to do with migraines necessarily, but there does seem to be a correlation that if you are a migraine person, there is a very high chance that when you shut your eyes, you will not be seeing black under any circumstance. Should you be actually having a migraine, well, you've got the joys that you get with whatever you get when you have your migraine. But on a normal day, when as far as you were concerned, there is nothing wrong with you other than it's a day with a winery, I have never seen just black when I shut my eyes. Now, I will say it does vary. Sometimes it's a blob of a colour, usually red or green. Sometimes it's like a firework display, colours popping up, doing like this all over the place. Other times it's more like a kaleidoscope in that they kind of do this and wander around a bit, which is kind of difficult. But one of the most important things I can't express to you enough is how hard it is to sleep when you've got a light. Bear in mind how bright this light is, so in case you want to understand how bright this light is, if I turn it off and you watch what happens when I turn it on, right? That blind and fade, that's how bright the lights are that are in my head when I'm kind of half having a migraine or my brain's in the mood, right? We're not talking it's a marginal colour in the black. No, we are talking like torch shining in your face bright. It can half make it really hard to sleep when your brain's giving you a firework display. That's fair enough, but at least you get to see black when you've got the mask on your face. I could put a mask on my face with my hands over it and still see the firework display because it's in my head. Now, obviously, in the 1600s, I'd have been committed for saying such things like that because obviously I must be deranged and there's something wrong with me. Well, I'm not disputing that. There possibly even is. But one of the things that last night's one was a whole new world of weird for me. Now, I talked the other day of how I had a migraine and it was like the tear in Star Trek Nexus. And there was like this jaggedy line, almost Doctor Who-y, with like the crack in the universe. There was this jaggedy line with colours, right? Splitting my vision. And I couldn't see anything in that patch of vision. Well, last night, I was feeling pretty chipper about the world and went to bed. And it started off with kind of like about, if the camera was my vision, a green strip kind of all the way down like this. And when I say green, almost around about that level of green, right? Proper, strong green. And I was just kind of marvelling at so I've got band of green today, have I? Because I did warn you, it's generally green or red. And I was kind of like, well, it's static. I could probably go to sleep through that. And then my brain went, oh no, honey, that was like the intro. And I kind of went, okay. And I had a kaleidoscope of green tartan. So black lines in it. So you could argue it was either green with black moving lines, but it wasn't, because it was like a splot of this concentrated green with loads of black lines on it, and over here was a dull bit with black lines on it, but they all moved together. So it literally was like someone had got a whole load of swatches of green tartan and was just constantly shuffling them around. Do you know how hard it is to sleep with your brain doing that? Because part of your brain's going, oh, tartan, that's cool. Wonder how that happened. Yeah. And then there's the bit of you going, I'm trying to sleep, brain. And it's like 3:30 in the morning and your brain's going, yay, tartan! And you're going, I need to sleep. This is why I'm so tired, because my brain keeps entertaining me and keeping me awake. And because, as I said, you know, when you've got your own personal firework display stroke kaleidoscope going on in your head, it is quite difficult to sleep. And the fact that you can't, you know, wear a mask or a headband or something, play music, nothing seems to, you know, shut it up. You just kind of have to sit and wait. It is really quite infuriating. But apparently, it can be one of two things. One is visual snow, which is usually something that you see all the time, but you're less aware of during the day because, well, you've got other things because your eyes are open, and so you don't tend to notice the subtler parts of it during the day. Or it's a silent migraine. Now, given how many migraines I can get, I'm quite reasonably thinking it's probably the silent migraine. But it made me wonder just how much and how long I've been having them for, because I always assumed, and you're going to laugh, that these started when I had my car accident. Because having broken a Bakelite steering wheel with my face, I started getting noticeable migraines. But even then, it still took the doctor 20 years to actually agree they were migraines. It was a bit under 20 years, but not a lot. Realistically, it took them a long time to agree with me that they weren't just a headache. They sent me to various specialists, and one specialist declared that I can't be having headaches because I can touch my toes, so I must be depressed. I mean, I know I'm not medically minded. I mean, not that medically, I'm not trained or nothing, but pretty confident that the ability to touch one's toes and have a headache does not make you depressed. Well, it makes you depressed because you got the headache. Because, if you've got a headache pretty much all the time, you get a bit miserable about it because, well, it's kind of annoying. But it is not, you're miserable because you got the headache, not you've got the headache because you're miserable because the headache came first. But they sent me to this bloke who basically spent his entire time on the phone trying to sell his house, and declared that I must be depressed because I could touch my toes. Yeah, and the worst thing is that even if this person is phenomenal at their job, and I'm not saying the guy was a useless bag of wind, because I'm sure he wasn't, but he was for me in that one appointment. And, because I waited I think my appointment was, say, 1 o'clock. He didn't show up till 2, and then, just as I thought that I must be first, because he was an hour late already, the nurse came up to me and went, oh, we've had someone come in via ambulance, because i.e. they couldn't drive themselves there. You don't mind waiting for them, do you? And before I could say, well, actually, I'm supposed to be back at work, she'd let them go in front of me. So I didn't it was nearly 3 hours before I got to see this man for my appointment, right? And so by the time I saw him, I was really kind of hacked off, because we all know that it is almost physically impossible to wait in a hospital waiting area. Doctors aren't quite so bad, but hospitals are. Hospital waiting areas for any length of time and feel well. You always start feeling rough. Nothing necessarily, if you've got an outstanding problem, that usually starts kicking in more. But even if you thought you were reasonably healthy and were, going on almost under duress, by the time you've sat in the waiting room 90 minutes, you're kind of done, right? And so the fact that I waited 3 hours for this idiot to show up and deal with me, and then literally I walked in, my number was called, I went in, he was on the phone. I sat there patiently waiting, doing my best patient face, while he was talking on the phone about selling his house. He eventually put the phone down and said, yes, can you go in there and change into a gown? Okay. Before I'd even finished rising from the chair, he was back on the phone to talk about selling his house. So I went in, got changed. Bear in mind, I've no reason to think that this is a wrong thing to ask me. And I don't particularly think that there was anything particularly wrong. Anyway, I sat there waiting, getting cold in my bear your ass gown with just me grunts and the flap at the back. Eventually he puts the phone down, comes in. Right, can you stand up, bend over and touch your toes? So I put my hands on the floor. Right, stand up, get dressed. He did not touch one thing. It's not like he was checking if my bones were out of thing, or he didn't touch the patient, and he went straight back in. I let him pick up the phone. He was back on the phone about the house. So I got dressed, wandered in, sat in front of him, waited while he finished talking about selling his house small. I almost could have told you more about that house than I knew about my own. And he put down the phone and he said, right, Miss Kimber, I'm going to write you a prescription. Okay. I'm thinking it's a bit of a leap but okay, if it helps, it helps. Don't come back. Well, what if they don't work? Okay. Now, fortunately for me, the company I worked for at the time was called Intercontinental Medical Statistics. They produced, surprisingly, medical statistics. And one of the key statistics that they produced was what drugs doctors dish out on a basically almost by the hour basis, right? They get a list at the end of every day and compile it at the end of the week, produce a list and then a big one at the end of the month, and then sell it. It is no more than that. So you have drug sales in the UK. Now, in the UK, we have a thing called postcodes. If the postcode does not have enough chemists and doctors in it so that you've got to have at least 3 so that you cannot necessarily identify which place, which doctor was doing the prescription, they get mushed together with a friend till you have at least 3 in them. And that then got called bricks. Just go with it. It was the name of the day. And so you had, obviously places like London where you've got, tons of places, Boots and all the rest of it dishing out. Even here where I live, the little village place that's near here, it's got at least 2 chemists, Tesco's, Lidl's, and they all have drugs dispensaries. So realistically, one postcode will have 4 places. That would be a brick, right? That'll be fine. But every week we would, take in all the things, the mainframe would chunk in all the data, and we would produce this for various drug companies. And we also did a survey which we sent out to doctors, and we asked them to fill in, so for example, for those who are not aware, common, I believe you call it, in America you call it Tylenol or whatever, ibuprofen is a very common over-the-counter pain prescription. And, because Nurofen is a branded version of ibuprofen. One of the kinds of questions you'd get would be, would you prescribe a branded thing over a generic, right? And so we would say, you know, well, this lot like Nurofen, this lot say just don't give a shit and we'll have just say any ibuprofen's fine. And so we did all of that and we produced that data, and then you could tally it up with the sales, and we did shit and did that and all. But I went and looked up what the shit this dude had prescribed me was, because we had full drugs catalogues, because obviously, you know, by the way, I would like to inform you, there are a surprising amount of UK people who willingly go to their local pharmacy and ask for paracetamol suppositories. Willingly. I find that weird, but there you go. Because it's not prescription based, it's over the counter. You just go in and say, can I have? And they look at you a bit funny and then give you some. Not that I've ever done it, because, well, I don't need it to go up the out hole, thanks. But I went and looked it up. It was antidepressants. And when I had leukemia in 1999, I was sitting outside on Christmas Eve. I was sitting outside the X-ray centre holding my notes, and I was told not to read them, and the guy buggered off. And you're like, open, read. And I was like, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Because obviously it literally had everything from when I was like, you know, born through to, you know, current day. I thought, I remember that. I don't remember that. Makes some sense. And reading some of this stuff was really quite interesting. Because, of course, when you go to the doctor, they often make a few notes, but you don't always get to read them, right? Well, here I was reading my notes. Now, these weren't the doctor's notes. These were hospital-based notes. And all of the bit about how I lost my hearing when I was little was all in there. And I was like, I remember that. And, you know, when I banged my head open and had stitches, I remember that. And then it got to the headache dude. And what was a little bit weird was I read my doctor's letter to send me to said man, right? And the doctor's letter had basically said that this is getting a lot of headaches. You know, she's had a few struggles at work. Well, yeah, because, you know, I can't walk and you know, I'm like this because work called me in for my personal property and not, you know, so it was after working all weekend, you know, I was feeling a little put out. And you know, but we need you to, you know, have a look, see if there's any cause of the headache, blah, blah, blah. And he basically wrote back, she's depressed. How would you know? You didn't even ask me anything. You just told me to go in another room, put a gown on, bend over and touch my toes. And from that, you decided I was depressed. And obviously years later, the migraines have got worse and worse, and I go to my now GP, because I'm with a different one because I've moved, and you know, and I basically, and one day while I was talking to them about it, I said, is it worth getting some form of scan? And he said, well, what way? And I said, well, when I had my accident, no one knows where my tooth went. No one's ever scanned my head, not even when I had the accident. Oh, there's no point. I'm getting headaches every day. Isn't it even worth a look? I mean, with my work insurance, I probably almost certainly could just say, look, you know, because they've even got a call a doctor thing. I'm sure if I phoned them up and said, you know, I really, 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 you know, it's causing me anxiety, and you know, I'm really convinced that there must be something wrong, because you know, it's all these years later and I still get all these problems, and it all started then, and because it did, and all of this kind of stuff. That I'm pretty sure I could convince someone to, you know, because you know, if you think about it, it's not like it's coming out of their pocket directly. So I probably could get someone to swear. But then I'd have to go and have it done, and I can't be arsed. So, but it is kind of one of those things. It's always puzzled me that ever since I had that car accident, I had a distinct change in my headache. Pattern, and it, it has got worse. Well, what if there's something growing up there? What if there's, I mean, I also need to point out that we all know, because we're adults, we all know that as a general whole, there can be lots of things that could be true, and you're oblivious to it because it's never really ventured into your line of sight, so you don't really give it a lot of thought. Well, when I was 16, one of my good friends, because I didn't have many, but one of my good friends died of a brain tumour. Now, they were a year older than me, and the only symptom they had was headaches. And they were discovered to be the 10th person in the world ever to have this particular type of brain tumour. And you're left sitting there going, well, what if that's me? Because bear in mind, this is like 2 years later, well, it's nearly 3 years later that I had, I started getting headaches. But there's a bit of you that's kind of going, what if that's me? What if I've now got something growing in my head and you're just dismissing my concerns with it? Because, I'm not going to say that there are bad things about the UK health system, because as a whole, it is generally pretty good. If you really need something, you generally do get it. And sometimes you get it pretty damn quick, even when it's really kind of optional. Because I broke the steering wheel with my face, I smashed my nose. Not too surprisingly. And a good 10 years ago now, I had my nose straightened because I still couldn't breathe properly through it. And I'd gone because, it did get a bit annoying. But it was a throwaway comment I made at the doctor while I was in. And they said, I'll send you, you can go to the specialist and they can see if there's anything that can be done about it. Well, that would be good. I think I had a bitching cold, and it's really hard to blow your nose when you can only really blow out one side of it. Within a couple of weeks, I had an operation. Like, you can, when I bust my knee and couldn't walk, because I, chunked stuff up, I was going to have to wait 6 months. And I couldn't walk. Well, I can open me gob and breathe. It's not like I couldn't breathe here. It was just that I couldn't blow my nose if I got a cold. Hardly really life-threatening, is it? 2 weeks. I think it was 10 days. I was floored. I was expecting 2 years because it really wasn't important. 10 days. So there are times that, you do sit there kind of going, I'm surprised it's, that long, or not that long, as the case may be. But generally, if you do need something, you will be sorted. If you think of when I had bowel cancer, they discovered that. They did all the tests. Yeah, I mean, we do have a bit of that. We do indeed. Depending on, I mean, obviously, let's say, you've got a tumour growing out your arm, it looks like a mushroom. Clearly, there's a thing growing out your arm that looks like a mushroom. They've got a bit of a heads up on that one. And it is, and I will say, it was a surprise to everyone that I had bowel cancer, because I'd gone in because I had the skin tag on my butt. And the doctor had to do the whole finger doody-doo, right? And she said, I'm really sorry, but, they're really shit hot on this at the moment. Basically, if you come in even mentioning the word bottom, we have to take a blood test and do the thing. this came back perfectly fine, but the blood test, I had a poo on a stick. Did the poo on a stick thing, and they said, we've found blood. And I was like, never seen blood in me. Fine, whatever. So then, of course, I had to go and have the Hubble telescope up there, and they found Sluggy, right? So he was a bit of a surprise to everybody, because, well, and there's no way he was bleeding, by the way, either. So, yeah, everyone forgets about Sluggy, because he's been medically incinerated a long time ago now. But I would have liked to have met him before he went, but, you know, it is one of those weird things, right, is that, so it was a bit of a surprise to everybody that Sluggy was, well, Sluggy, because, you know, if you consider, I mean, obviously it's not skin coloured, but he was no other, you know, if this was the inside of your bowel, he was exactly the same. He was just a little, tiny little knobble, kind of hanging out in there. He wasn't pinker, he wasn't angry, he wasn't, and he was smooth, he was not, you know, weirdly shaped, he was just minding his own. And so when they sampled it, because it was over a certain size, I mean, if you Google it, the bigger it is, the more likely it is, but the truth of the matter is, when you Google and you see picture of, you know, if you Google bowel cancer, you will see some really gnarly looking stuff. Sluggy just, it was like looking at a field of grass and not realising that some of it is clover. It literally was. He blended in with everything else and was quite happy minding his own business until someone went in there to dig him out, and then of course perforated my bowel, and that really, really didn't help. But as you say, Christy, one of the, you know, an awful lot of it is sitting around and waiting. But of course, here in the UK, even if you don't have medical insurance, so you're just a normal person, you haven't paid for private, you don't have private cover through work or whatever, or you know, you're rich enough to be paying it because you can, or you have decided to weigh in because you feel there are risks, and you wanted to get in advance. The waiting times as a whole are not that bad, but there are times when it doesn't make sense, such as I said, the NHS wanted me to wait 6 months for money. Yay! It's the insanity of it all. But it is kind of one of those things, right? Is that if you have a life-threatening issue, you will be dealt with. If it's more of a, oh, I've got a bit of a sore fingernail, yeah, really, you know, if you've got an ingrowing toenail or something, yeah, don't expect to be at the front of the queue for that. But if you've got, you know, if you're taken in via ambulance, you don't pay for an ambulance like the Americans. It's free. You're in trouble. You need help, right? By the way, do Americans get charged for calling out the fire brigade? Out of interest, or the police. Just curious, because, you know, if you have to pay for an ambulance, why don't you have to pay for the fire engine and the water you used and all of that? Anyway, maybe I shouldn't give them ideas, but, you know, here in the UK, we don't pay for none of that. We've already paid for it through our wages and the taxes that get deducted. So, you know, it's all good. But it is still quite surprising how we can have private medical. Oh, that's in the wrong one. That's why it looks a bit funny. You can have private medical and you'll see the same guy in the same hospital, but you get on the short list. And there is a bit of you that goes, well, perhaps if he kind of used his list, you know, and did people in actual order of requirement, you know, we wouldn't need medical. But it also always surprised me that as an NHS patient, you rock up to hospital because you've got to go and have blood tests, CT, X-ray, you know, discussion, whatever the hell it is you're having done. No one said it had to be anything other than a discussion. You have to pay for parking. And I don't just mean a token effort. The price on a hospital car park is the most extortionate car park other than central London that you will find. I mean, it is £1 an hour, right? But if you go private, i.e. all the rich people, parking is free. So the one lot of people who could afford to pay for parking don't pay. When you rock up to an NHS accident and emergency, because you don't really get private accident and emergency, but when you rock up to A&E, there is sometimes a vending machine or two in the corner. Body parts are required to buy anything, mind, and it will be horrible and old and stale. When you go to the hospital with normal time in A&E, normal time with NHS, you sit in what is almost a rundown classroom waiting for your appointment. And yet when you go private, comfy chair and fucking free tea and coffee. And there's a bit of you that kind of goes, once again, the few people who could afford it don't pay for it. Yeah, we would. I mean, if you went in with slightly nondescript things and the doctor didn't really know what it is, chances are here you would also see a nurse, but she might call the doctor in while you're there. If the doctor sends you for tests, you might be able to go the same day. But if it's to go back to your doctor, you will wait 7 days for those results. Here, you do have to wait 7 days for, you know, so if you have a blood test or whatever, you will wait 7 days for that results. Now, I will also tell you, they know the same day, but you will be told you will wait 7 days and you will not phone them before. If it's interesting, you'll know because they'll ring you. It's almost how to do it. If you haven't heard kind of within 48 hours, you almost don't need to ring for the results. It was fine. Save yourself the grief. Because the day they discovered I had leukemia, I went in the morning, and it was like, right, you need to wait a week for your results. Yeah, okay. Allegedly, they spent the whole afternoon trying to get hold of me. Well, no one actually rang, so you didn't try very hard. But yeah, they decided my results were bad enough, and they were trying to get hold of me. And you're kind of like, 7 days, huh? And if you're at the hospital, if you pay really close attention here in the UK, quite often there's a machine in the room. And as you walk out, while you're putting your shirt or top back on, or your coat or whatever, they've labelled your vial. They don't put it in like a stand to send off. They drop it in a machine. That machine is doing the test. By the time you've got in the waiting room, the results have already been done. Because I've sat there and watched it print them out. Because there wasn't enough room in the waiting room. So they were waiting for, they needed to clean all of their gear so that you could go out and the next one in one move. And so I literally drop and it was printing the results. What do you mean, 7 days? And the answer is it's 7 days because we don't want the hassle of, with that far behind, we're telling everyone the results. So I very much do understand that one. It is not always easy, But at the same time, once here in the UK they've decided what's wrong with you, and again, that might not be quick, because I mean, my bowel cancer thing, I went in for the GP appointment. I did see a doctor straight away, not a nurse, huzzah. She made me poo on a stick and get a blood test, but I could go and crap on the stick as soon as I had crap to stick on a stick, but obviously I had to get the blood test, so that had to be another day, and then that got sent off, and that was a wait at least 7 days, and then they lost my poop sample, so I had to poop again and do the blood test because it had to be a new one because it had now been, quote, too long, and so I had to go back and have another blood test and put on a stick, and then that went off for another week. So it took a good couple of weeks, and then it was like, there's blood in it, we'll have to make an appointment with the specialist, and then that was a couple of weeks to get the appointment with the specialist. But the moment they decided there was something wrong, it was a week. It was a couple of weeks at most. So yeah, they generally do move quite fast once they get going. It's just getting them going. There's a little black dog in the way. There he is. He's a sleepy dog. Yeah, I mean, over here it is a little bit weird, but for the most part it doesn't seem unreasonable. You do hear of, I've needed a hip replacement for 2 years. Well, chances are you were deemed not to have that severe of an issue. They're not generally cruel for the sake of it. If you are deemed to have a severe problem, you will be bumped up the tree. And there might be extenuating circumstances. So, for example, if you wanted a if you needed a hip replacement, but you've got really bad arthritis and you're chronically overweight, they may not put you as high up the tree as someone who is generally fit and healthy, but also needs a hip replacement, because they are going to benefit. If you're drastically overweight, you're going to put you're making your own problem worse. And they can do a little bit of that, which is why nearly every Brit will tell you when you go to the doctor, you could go with your foot, with your foot in a bag, and if you're overweight, they'll ask you if you've lost weight for your foot. Well, yeah, but it fell off. Weight's got nothing to do with it. Oh yeah, but well, you're overweight, or if you smoke, have you considered stop smoking? Why? Well, that might my foot grow back. I mean, I don't smoke, but it's that kind of thing. Is they do occasionally latch on to something because it's a good excuse to bully you about it a bit. And weight, smoking, drinking are easy targets, is the phrase. So they will not prioritize you as high if there is, one of those kind of circumstances, because your outcomes are going to be less favorable. And much like, you hear on TV about American doctors who won't do surgeries because they don't think, it might spoil their record, kind of thing. No one wants to pick, no one's going to pick a losing battle. And so, yeah, if they think that you're too fat for it, well, irrelevant of whether weight has made any difference to it whatsoever, there is a distinct chance you will not end up as near the top of the tree as maybe you would have done if you were skinny, right? There is a generally perceived level of narrow-mindedness. One of the other common things that you get here in the UK is if you have any form of woman's troubles, have you tried birth control? Or why is that? Because, well, that'll control the bleeding, it'll control this, it'll control that. Yeah. And that is generally, so it sounds like to a large extent you guys have it not dissimilar to us. Now, I'm not saying that's right, because I definitely don't agree that it's right. But I do understand some of the logic of, if you've got a major heart condition and the surgery alone could kill you, they might want you to do something to help try and improve your odds before they'll suggest the risk of doing it. And they usually do it on a kind of a risk management basis, and it's not they don't blatantly sit there and going, well, I don't want another death on my hands kind of thing. But because they don't, I mean, honestly, they don't. But they will say things like, well, while it's such a high-risk surgery, we feel the risk of doing it is greater than the risk of not doing it. So even if you're in an extreme agony or whatever, that is not, you can live through that. What you can't live through is dying on the operating theatre table. And so they will often kind of not operate because they want you to get fitter, thinner, give up smoking, give up drinking, or at least cut it down a bit, blah, 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 to improve your odds. And, my gran died on the operating table. Absolutely. Slightly surprisingly, but she did. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't on the cards. She was an old biddy, so, it's, from that point of view, she'd lived a long, good life, and I'm not saying she was due, but it was not wholly unexpected. But at the same time, I don't think any of us had really given a thought, because, I mean, I'm sure the same's over there in most countries, is that if you're going for anaesthetic, they will tell you there's a chance you won't wake up. And it doesn't matter how fit and healthy you are. You could be 20 years old and fit as the butcher's dog running, triathlons. They will still tell you there is a good chance you may not wake up because you're having anaesthetic. Now, obviously, again, smoke, drink, fat, whatever, makes it worse. But, my gran was fit as a butcher's dog. She was, she was young for her age, as the phrase would go. But she went to have an operation and it killed her. I'm kind of glad for her. It meant she went to go peacefully. Slightly sad for her. It meant that her loved ones weren't with her when she went. But, at least she went peacefully, all right? It is kind of one of those things, is that, I mean, if you Google around, there'll be lots of, oh, I've been on the waiting list for years. This is ridiculous. If you are still alive, that is exactly why you're on the waiting list. Because you could survive it. Because it is not life-threatening. Now, there are people who will, unfortunately, pass on having not had their operation. But they usually require organ donors. And because you can't custom, kill off people to get the organ of your choice, and I don't feel that's necessarily an unreasonable thing not to be able to do. Because, what if someone who desperately needed a new kidney wanted to polish me off so they could steal mine? I'm still using it. Now, I've got 2, maybe you can have one, but if I've not really given that a lot of thought, well, maybe not. The fact that I can't be an organ donor, that's something I find very difficult. I can't give blood and I can't be an organ donor anymore. Because I had leukemia. And it's not because I had leukemia, it's because I had blood while I had leukemia. And that kind of knocks me off a bit because, well, it's good enough to keep me alive. It's doing a good enough job of keeping me up here. Now, I do get that it's not the equivalent of, the hand-fed organic chicken, right? But if you're bleeding out, it's going to be better than none now, isn't it? Especially as, over here, the blood people do constantly, and I mean constantly, whine they don't have enough blood. But at the same time, they turn down willing volunteers. Because. Now, I'm not saying some of the things they turn them down for are wrong. If you've been abroad in the last 3 months, can't give blood at the moment. If you've had a tattoo in the last a few months, can't give blood at the moment. If you have had, I don't know whether this clause is still in it, so bear with me on this, and this is not a dig at any particular sexual orientation, but if you have had a gay relationship, including sex, in the last few months with a new partner and it's been unprotected, they will not take you. They didn't at one point, at least, take your blood because you might have caught something. And there's quite a lot of it, if you've done this, if you've had this, if you, and it's almost like the shopping list of don'ts. Well, I do appreciate that, maybe I've had some, if you've been ill in the last 6 weeks, if you, all these things, suddenly you can't give blood. And as I say, to a large extent, I'm kind of backing them on that. I do very much understand that if someone, if you are a high-risk category to pass on something of value, then, well, that really is, best avoided. It's not like there aren't a few million other people around here who could do it. But then at the same time, don't be moaning you ain't got enough when you literally would throw it away. Sometimes, to save face for the person whose blood it is, they will take your pint and then just chuck it away and not use it. Rather than blatantly saying, no, don't bother. To save you the embarrassment of being thrown out at the gate, they will take it and throw it out. I actually think that's worse. Because then you stole it, and knowing full well you were never going to use it. My mother couldn't give blood because she was too skinny. You've got some amount of blood in you. The lists of why you can't give blood are actually quite weird. And as I say, it's quite frustrating because while I don't tend to watch TV anymore, you used to get lots of ads of, we're dangerously low on blood, how would you feel if we couldn't operate on your loved one because there wasn't enough blood, blah, 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 guilting you into going. But then it almost feels like 9 out of 10 people aren't good enough anyway. Well, and you can't give too often, and you can't, and you're kind of like, well, if you don't want it, it's not our fault you haven't got enough blood. You know, I mean, obviously sometimes it is, quote, your fault because maybe you took drugs or whatever, and so they don't want it now because, well, you did that and that's a bad thing. But, you know, if it, like me, I have not actively done anything to myself or otherwise ever in my life that would normally have put you on an at-risk chart. But because I received so much blood while I had leukemia, I cannot give blood. You can't give blood if you've had an operation within the last so many years. You can't, if you've had blood since such and such date, which is the key one that gets most of us, and you're just kind of left sitting there going, do you want some or not? I mean, I'd almost bet quite a lot of money, like all the stuff that I have. If you asked a man who's going to die because he hasn't got any, he's bleeding out, would you put up with something that, 12 months, 20 years ago, they had blood products? Well, if you've had no symptoms in 20-something years, allegedly the body has changed every single cell within a 7-year period. So, arguably, since I've had leukemia, I am basically on my third body by now. Well, it hardly feels relevant now, does it? I mean, while there might still be some chemo hidden somewhere in your blood or in your bones or something, yeah, get that. But it is that kind of frustration for me that, all you seem to hear is, oh, we haven't got enough blood, oh, we haven't got enough blood, oh, we haven't got enough blood. And then, oh, I'm sorry, we don't want, and then it's like, oh, sorry, that's not good enough. No, nor that, nor that, nor that. Well, make your mind up. You're either sure or you ain't. As I say, it's not the organically fed chicken. It is, maybe a Tesco value chicken, but it's still a chicken and it's still, food is food. So, I don't know. I do kind of... Shut up! Let's look up the blood donating shit. Hang on. So... See, here we go. Right, so you must be between 18 and 66. You must weigh more than 50 kilos. And you must have normal blood pressure and heart rate. You must be a UK resident. You must be registered with a GP. You must be able to prove who you are. You must have a UK bank account. We don't get paid for this shit, by the way. You must be able to give your informed consent, i.e. you've got to be legally sound in mind, without the use of interpreter or fully understand the medical question you'll be asked. Failing any of that will mean that you won't be able to do that. Okay. You cannot donate if you have been now or previously diagnosed with AIDS, HIV, syphilis, hepatitis B or C, or any other blood-borne infectious disease. You cannot give blood if you have any medical problems like asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, anemia, or any condition associated with blood loss. Asthma's got nothing to do with blood loss. But that's a new one. I'd be ruled out for that then. You are a drug user who has taken recreational drugs or drugs of abuse at any point in the last 6 weeks. You have injected yourself or been injected with illegal or non-prescription drugs, including bodybuilding drugs, synthetic drugs, or things. That's pretty much ever. That's not just today. You have consumed alcohol in the last 24 hours. You have taken or applied any prescription over-the-counter medications, including paracetamol, aspirin, ibuprofen, antibiotics, antihistamines, steroidal creams within a week of your appointment. Contraception is the only accepted, but You cannot do it if you've had a vaccination within the last 7 days. You cannot do it if you have donated blood anywhere else within 4 months. You are pregnant or less than 6 months has passed since the delivery or termination. You cannot give blood if you've had your ears, face or body pierced or had a tattoo or any cosmetic treatment that involved piercing your skin in the last 4 months. You've had acupuncture in the last 4 months. Failing that, Oh, they do pay you now. Wow, that's new. They pay you 65 quid. But there's actually more to it than that, as I recall. There's actually further details. Further details of things that... But yeah, and you're kind of going... Because there wasn't anything about travelling abroad there, so I know there's more. But it's that kind of... So if you've almost like had a graze in the last 4 months, you won't be able to give blood, and you're like... I'm sorry, pardon? If you've had anything that has pierced your skin, realistically, probably not. And you're kind of going... If it's good enough to keep me alive and you've got a dude dying, what do you want? Do you want my blood, or do you want blood for him or not? And I've always said that, if any of you find yourself in need, and you need my blood specifically, A negative in case you're desperate, well, surely it should be up to you whether you're prepared to take that risk or not. Not some arbitrary decision by someone else. Because if you know me, and you know how boring I am, the only thing you can get is, you know exactly where you stand, where I've been, what I've had, and all the rest of it. So, there's a hole here, isn't it? Let me get. Would you rather live, or would you rather have my blood and live, and potentially, it not be entirely perfect? Or would you rather croak it because you're a bit snobby and you don't want mine because, well, Well, pretty much, right? And this is the bit that I find... This is the bit that I really struggle. I do understand that if you've been bitten by some, random weird animal out in the forest, or you've had, beauty treatment at some back alley, unlicensed whatever, right? I get that, because you have no idea what they injected you with, how clean everything was. Totally get that. But if you've lived the boring life that someone like myself has lived, where you don't drink, you don't smoke, you've never done drugs, you've never done anything like that. The only thing that you've had you've had a few operations because, well, you didn't have a lot of choice. But if it's been good enough to keep me alive this last 20 years, probably would have done that for someone else. Pretty confident of that. I mean, it's not like I do anything special to it. It's not like I'm, I have to have it, cleaned every couple of months or whatever. It's done me good. It keeps me alive. So I'm pretty sure if you put some in someone else, as long as they're the right blood type, it would do the same for them. So would they maybe gain some illness I didn't know I have, maybe? Would they gain, would they gain my characteristics? I doubt it. But, it is that kind of... I get it, but I kind of don't. I do feel that there are certain things that you have to kind of draw the line for. And I do understand that if you've gone to some beauty school washout who's, giving you lip fillers and all the rest of it, do you really know what they put in your body? Were they really qualified for that? You need to give it a bit of time to sort itself out and work out whether that was good. I understand that. But at the same time, don't be telling me my blood's not good enough when it does a perfectly good job of keeping me alive. Now, if I had lots of ailments, sure. If I was taking 58 billion pills to keep myself alive, so my body's done this before this week. I do not have COVID, but it'll do that thing where it's like you swallowed a bit of toast and there's a crumb in the back of your throat that won't shift, and it keeps making you cough and trying to do funny on you, but there's nothing wrong with it at the same time. But yeah, I do understand that if you've got dubious, questionable issues that you can't say for sure, no, I did not. But I haven't had an operation since my back treatment. And that's got to be 3 years now. So can we, if it was going to do anything, it should have fucking done it by now. So clearly it's good enough for me. And, should I need blood, and one of you fell into the similar category to myself, and it was a choice of be no more or take not the absolute peak, Michelin star stuff, I'd probably be prepared to slum it with I was ill a few years ago, but I've been all right since. Because unless it's something that stays in your blood and you forever have it, such as AIDS or whatever, then, well... And to be fair, someone I know, not intimately, but someone I know has HIV. And when they discovered they have HIV, they got it the same way everybody gets HIV seems to get it. They found out they had HIV. They're obviously a little bit taken back because, they were hoping not to, but, they caught it. They take their HIV medication to the point it is now not detectable enough that they even have to report that they've got it. So let's think about that for a minute. There is a stage when it is no longer necessary to admit that you have it. So in all those situations where, you see on like TV dramas where blood got in the eye or, kind of thing, or they puked and it landed on them, and they have to go into full kind of quarantine because, right? And have tests and prophylactics and all the rest of it. They're at a point they do not have to tell anybody. Well, if that's the case, how is that different from someone who doesn't know they've got it yet? Now, if I was going to be no more, I would rather have this person's blood than none, because clearly, knowing that they potentially, that there is a chance that could happen, you start on the, you do the prophylactics and stuff to try and prevent it happening. Most people, while there have been court cases where people have tried to sue medical profession for what can only be termed as wrongful life, i.e. they saved their lives when they didn't want them to. Most people are only interested in the terms wrongful deaths, where you died of something and you shouldn't have. So, okay, I'm not going to pretend that having something serious is a walk in the park and enjoyable and should be recommended for all. Because, well, clearly that's not the case. However, if the choice is that or death, even if you have to take the free NHS pills for the rest of your life, at least you have a life to take them in. You know, it's... I've always struggled a little bit with that. I've not understood the... I mean, I get it. It's not the ideal shit. And should you know that there is a small chance of insert something. But again, it's that risk, you know, like I was saying about the risk assessment of doing an operation. Not the risk has to be higher of not doing it than doing it. So, you know, well, then surely the same's true with blood donations. Is that there is the kind of grade A1 grass-fed, hand-reared, you know, chicken variety, all the way down to the it expires in 10 minutes, extra value, you know, questionable chicken meat, right? And someone like myself, given that I don't really am the queen of boring, okay, I'm not, you know, grade A1, perfect, best in show blood. But I shouldn't be a high risk, particularly. I may have a risk of giving someone something. Don't know what. But, you know, we'll go with the fact that, I mean, because again, asthma is really an odd one from that point of view. But it is, to me, it's the... Surely this is better than none. And, you know, if you're going to constantly whine that you haven't got enough blood, stop being so snobby about it. Yes, put it in the only if you haven't got any better category. But at least you've got some if you need some, you know? I mean, back in the war, they used coconut milk and water. Well... Is it really worse than that? I mean, can't live off coconut water and milk and water, though. You can't entirely replace someone's blood with that shit. So let's not be pretending, you know. You do need actual red stuff. Yeah, I mean, certainly from my own point of view, I would rather live and deal with a few consequences than not live to have that regret. Now, I also know that I have no interest in... it came up as part of my car accident, so I have no interest of living where I am not able to be independent enough to do so. So if I had another car accident or whatever, and it rendered me incapable of looking after myself, I am not particularly interested in prolonging my lifespan in that direction. But at the same time, if I need Phil taken out, because bear in mind Phil's still in there, and you're out of Lizzie's blood type, well, if someone's got asthma, well, you know, or that, you know, that 12 years ago you had measles or something, right? Or whatever also counts. I'd rather have measles than cancer. I mean, given the choice, you know, never had measles, by the way. But I'd rather have, pop a few pills every day or whatever it's going to take to, keep the wolf at bay, than be eaten alive and potentially have a long, painful, drawn out, horrendous. No. So it is kind of one of those weird things to me that we have, that we don't have that kind of distinction of the, here is our best in show. Here is, because they do categorise blood. So, for example, if you are perfect, you've got exactly the right blood, bloody blah, that is best in show. You then have irradiated blood. So that generally says there was a slight issue, but they've nuked the shit out of it, so now it's fine. If you're gonna, and to be honest, they tend to irradiate blood anyway. So if you're going to do that, a lot of these things don't survive that, because that's the whole freaking point. So just take the damn blood and then stop moaning you haven't got any. It just seems a little bit of a back to front process to be constantly moaning that you haven't got enough blood. And then, I'm not saying some of the things aren't viable. The idea of, if you've had something injected into you and you can't, and it was not done in, basically surgical conditions with people with lots of letters after their name and qualifications to do it. How do you know it wasn't, cooking fat, polyfiller, whatever else it is that they've done these things with? Just before streaming, there was one I saw. Apparently it's a Chinese trend going around at the moment, in that they want the crowns of their head to be taller, because it makes their face look thinner and narrower, because it makes it taller. And there was some stupid woman, because the Chinese and the Japanese are quite into a baby face look. They're quite drawn to that, allegedly. That this particular person was trying to look younger by having a thinner, bigger face with big eyes and all the rest of it. That originally they used to be injected with hyaluronic acid, but it takes quite a lot of it, because to raise the height of your scalp where your hair is and everything takes quite a lot of liquid. And so they've apparently started using bone cement. Now, it's medical grade shit. I mean, but this particular girl had it done by a beauty salon. Well, no beauty salon's going to give you training in bone, basically polyfiller of the bone and how to shape it. And as the guy who did the video said, an awful lot of these trends about, having big ears, small ears, whatever, because you may recall elf ears were in at one point. And now it's kind of not really. Well, bone cement is for life. Doesn't come out. Do you really want to do that to yourself and live with it, knowing that you'll now potentially say 10, 20 years really out of date and look really stupid for it? But yeah, she'd gone through having the injections. She'd had like 50 injections in her head and it still wasn't enough. So she went for this bone cement. And my mind just boggles, man. To me, that's just... I don't get it. I mean, most people, especially women, most people have a bit of their body that they wish was a bit different. Whether you think your nose is too big, too small, your forehead's too tall, you're too fat, too thin, no arse, you want bigger boobs. Everyone's got something that, you know, if you could wave the fairy wand and have no side effects, no cost, no, and yet come out looking the way you wanted, that's what you do. Now, for me, primarily I'd love to be, I really wish I'd been a couple of inches taller. Technically 3, but, you know, I wish I'd been marginally taller. But not enough to do anything about it. I wish I was a bit skinnier. Not enough to do anything about it. Well, and that would be my argument, is that we all know, because, you know, if you've been around a while, at some point, most of us have got a scar somewhere. Now, irrelevant of where it is, why it is, maybe the really hilarious story that goes with it, most of us have at least one scar. Now, it might be quite small, or it could be pretty colossally big. Me, I've got a veritable smorgasbord of scars, ranging from tiny to huge. The biggest, of course, being, 13.5 inches or something. It might even be longer. I think it was 15.5, actually. It goes basically from the bottom of my chest right down to, well, beyond my navel. Because, well, it's a long trip. And we all know that scar tissue takes forever and a day. If you're old, you will know that eventually your scar tissue fades to normal colour and regains most of its elasticity. And so as a result, I mean, it doesn't look perfect, but you have to kind of look a lot harder to find it. Now, I've got facial scars, and they're still reasonably prominent from 1991. But no longer do they stop my lip from meeting. No longer do they mean I can't smile. No longer, you know, they don't hurt now for anything. The only time that they did hurt was when I had to get a tooth sorted, and the guy pulled my lip up and squeezed it, and I woke up the next morning absolutely looking like Jar Jar Binks, right? It was huge. And he'd given me his number because it was private, and I sent him a picture, and I kind of went, am I supposed to look like this? And he was actually dealing with a patient, excused himself and phoned me and went, holy shit, what happened? And I went, you did. And he was kind of like, well, you can come in if you want. And I went, I don't really want to. I mean, if it's not life-threatening and it will fucking wear off, but I don't really want to go out in public looking like Jar Jar Binks, thanks. But, you know, he had a good sense of humour, and it was part of the reason I picked him as the dude. But it was one of those things, is that it is, you know, it has occasionally caused problems, because mainly, instead of swelling up a little bit like most people's bits would do, because of the scarring, it couldn't drain as well. So instead of swelling and then draining at the same time, so maintaining a puffy look, but basically constantly filling and draining at, you know, at roughly an equal rate, well, it filled quicker than it could drain, so I turned into Jar Jar Binks. And to give you an idea, this is not the actual one in question, but I had a lip balm that was about this big. It wasn't big enough to do my lips. Just picture that. I mean, this is a normal lip balm size, right? The big one, I still had to do multiple passes to cover my lips. Jar Jar Binks is the only word you can have for it, right? But yeah, it is the scar tissue doesn't quite work the way the rest of your skin body does, because the cells have been smushed together and forced together in a violent manner. So for you to have surgery to make your nose a little bit shorter, thinner, flatter, wider, longer, to have some of the droop taken out of your eyelids, to have your face lifted because there's wrinkles, because, you know, God forbid you actually look your age, or any of the other kind of things, bear in mind there are numerous of them. Is it worth it? Now, Trevor and I, when we lived in London, you know, occasionally you watch a TV program, not because you're actually interested in it, not because you really want to, but out of that kind of car crash mentality of, this is so god awful and I kind of want to know what happens next scenario. And it was a story about a guy who nicknamed himself Catman. And he had his cat girls who were strippers. Let's not pretend that that wasn't a thing. And basically he hired this like 16-year-old tart and called her Cat Girl of the Month. Tried to take her off to a round the world tour thing for no apparent reason. Because bear in mind, no one's ever heard of this dude. Basically, we were convinced because he wanted to get in the knickers, right? It was... and the girls the two main girls that he had as his cat girls seemed to be doing all the work. He didn't seem to be doing anything other than sleazing around and looking a bit, well, frankly, weirdo. And anyway, in one of the things, there was a bit on plastic surgery. And Trev beautifully summed up something. How short has your willy got to be before you let a man cut it in half? Now, as someone who doesn't own a willy, it seemed an odd comment, but if you'd seen what we saw that day, you'd understand. Now, we didn't get really to see a before picture of said willy, because, well, generally willies are frowned upon on British TV. But this man's willy had turned into the biggest eggplant you had ever seen in your entire life. It was deep, deep purple. And there was past some weirdness and it, right? And he couldn't sit down, he couldn't walk, he couldn't stand. He was just in screaming agony. And as I say, this thing was, well, this doesn't come out as purple. Hey you, this looks a lot pinkier on camera, but it was kind of, if you imagine, take the pink out of this, it was kind of purple, right? And, you know, how bad has it got to be that this is the answer, right? And I do know that there are people who unfortunately need to go through a level of plastic surgery to resolve issues. Well, looking at the state this man's winky had got into, it looked like it was going to fall off. Well, then you'd have none. So, as you say, small and functional surely has to be better than, because they kind of did spot checks on him for weeks, and it went on for weeks. I don't remember, or maybe we got bored of watching it, but I don't ever remember, oh, he's out the other side and it's all working now. I don't remember that as the outcome, so I don't know if we ever found out. But it just seemed, did you really gain enough to go through that? Again, it's the risk factor, like I was saying earlier about any operation, about how, you know, the risk of doing it has got to be less than the risk of not doing it, or they won't do it, kind of thing, right? And should your winky be in in the lacking area in your eyes. The risks of the surgery to potentially fix said winky issue, all the pain, the anguish, the problems, the fact that it's going to look funny, the fact that, well, the skin won't stretch very well because scar tissue takes a long time before that happens, and all of those kind of things, you still think it's a good idea, really? I mean, I do understand that sometimes these things really do play on your mind, right? I arguably have had plastic surgery. I did not elect to have plastic surgery. It was done to me because of my face in the car accident. And so it was a kind of a medically required level of plastic surgery. It was not done to make me look like Kim Kardashian, give me a chiseled jaw, pouty lips or anything of the sort. It was to stitch my face together to stop me looking like alien, right? And that's fine. But it took over 10 years before it stretched normally and didn't hurt. It took longer than that before it stopped being the first thing you saw on my face. So let's not be pretending it's a quick option either, potentially. Now, obviously, faces are bad. There's lots of nerves and things in your face, but the truth of it is anyone who's had a scar over, the small scratch kind of thing, will know that they can hurt for no reason. Basically, yeah. I mean, I do understand that there are times where things do need doing, and the medical necessity may not be as apparent to one as it is to others. So I do know that there are people who have had surgery to have things changed, and it is necessary to them. It is medically necessary to them. You and I might not have agreed. You and I might go, yeah, I'll live without that. But for some people, they can't live with it the way it is. And I do respect that. I truly do. But again, it is that risk factor. To me, much as I am pretty, if you want to chop it off, you chop it off, you do that. I will take for your word that that is the best course of action. Hence, I was quite calm and collected about the bowel cancer thing. I was kind of like, yeah. See. Oh, we've all watched lots of Botched. Botch is great. But it is one of those things is you see on there how wrong it can go. Now, most of the time, the two guys on Botched do, frankly, perform almost miracles with some of these people. But it's not that the people necessarily who did the original were totally incompetent. It's not. If, for example, when my nose got straightened so I could breathe properly, I can tell you now, that didn't go properly. I've got a hole in my nose at the bottom of my nose. I'm not going to do it. But, for example, I can put that, if I wanted to. Again, I haven't tried it, but I know that the hole goes all the way through for lots of reasons. I've got a hole that is about the size of the end of the crochet hook in the bottom of my nose. It looks like someone's put a hole punch up there, and because it's almost perfectly round, and done a hole punch, right? I was not supposed to end up with that. They did say if you end up with a hole, you can come back and we'll fix it. Well, the only time it annoys me is if I get a nosebleed, because then it kind of leaks out of both sides when it's only one. Other than that, really not that bothered. I could probably get a nose ring, wouldn't need the piercing. But again, not bothered. Not going to bother doing that because can't be bothered. I have my ears pierced. I did volunteer to do that age 13, and I don't regret that. I don't make use of it. I've got the same pair of earrings in today that I had in 3 years ago, and I take them out occasionally and clean them and then put them straight back in again. I don't change them because I'm lazy, so kind of pointless, but I don't regret it. I just don't use it. It's the only thing I've ever done optionally to myself. Everything else was told to me that I should have this done. And I'm not, I am not the whole my body is a temple kind of person. Well, it is. It's a bit of a ruin, but it is. I'm not there going, oh, I can't eat that. It's not organic. Oh no, I can't possibly do that. It's got no. I'll eat any old shit, but as long as it's not a green vegetable. But at the same time, it is. There are risks that I don't feel desperately necessary to take. My life is not the most interesting life in the world. It is one of those. I've never understood, well, I do understand it. You get these people who've spent like £250,000 on plastic surgery and they're planning the next 20 more. Well, the fact that you're not 5, I'm safe in saying that, because although I don't know exactly how old you are, you're not 5. So it's not like you're struggling to walk because your spine's wonky. You have got this far as an adult with it the way it is. Just like I've got it, my spine is curved in the wrong direction in some places, right? Would it be nice if it could be straightened? Yes, it would. Am I actually going to do it? No. Because I am used to it. I've never known it any different. And it does not cause significant issue. There are times it is more problematic, such as standing around waiting for things. It really doesn't like that. Because that's at a maximum stretch and it really doesn't like that. But, well, then sit down, lean against the wall, slouch a bit, move around, be a bit whiny. It's far better than undergoing a really long, complicated surgery that could paralyse me. I'll just not stand around so much. It's... But I do understand. So, a friend of mine, their daughter has really short Achilles tendons. And because when they were growing, they had to have them basically chopped in half, almost, so that they would extend so that she could flex her feet, because it got to the point, it would basically get to the point where she could not flex her feet because she'd grown and the tendon hadn't. Now, obviously, as we've discussed, scar tissue does not flex very well. So it is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that if you go to fix it too early, you will keep having to fix it. But at the same time, if it is substantially not growing quick enough either, you almost have no choice. And so the doctors recommended and did do the operation a few times on her. And personally, I look like a sack of shit in clothes anyway, so it wouldn't really matter to me. I mean, if I got a Versace dress or something, I'd look like a sack of crap and I died in it. So it's, it's a waste of time. So, but it is priorities. And so sometimes what feels cosmetic to some of us isn't to everybody else. And I do understand that. And I think most of us can understand that, Christy and I obviously clearly don't really care that much that we got wonky spines because it is not sufficient an issue. But if it was causing you enough day-to-day issues, the chance to fix it, if it was, 60% chance of fixing it to 40% chance of leaving it the same or marginally worse, you might get to a point where you go, oh, I'm prepared to take that risk now. I've kind of had enough of it. I want to try. And so I do appreciate that it's not always a cut and dry thing. But I really don't understand, because, you know, we've all watched too much Botch, the people who've had, you know, 60 plastic surgeries and are still planning more. Oh, I think my nose could be better. Oh, I think this, I think that. Well, yeah, I mean, my stomach could be flatter. My boobs could not point south quite so much. I've got a few wrinkles in my face. My mother had terrible jowls before my age. I mean, Christ, she almost looked like a boxer dog. She had jowls that bad. I don't, thankfully. I could do, I've got a bit of a receding hairline. I could maybe have that sorted. But I just can't be bothered, man. I can't be bothered. And I don't feel a benefit or a deficit from not. I don't see that I would have enough benefit from doing it. And I don't feel enough deficit for not doing it, that it would motivate me to spend that kind of money on fixing shit that only I really see. So, because let's face it, I don't go out that much. I haven't got a partner. I'm not exactly a TV presenter of the decade, because, I mean, let's face it, we've discussed this before. I could be naked except for the fact you just see my jumper. You wouldn't know. Yay! Go Tenchy Tench! And that's the thing. Sometimes it just takes a tiny little bit of effort on your behalf, and you can fix some of the problems, and it's far better than drastic surgery because. I mean, if you had one foot twice the size of the other, I can kind of understand wanting to sort it, because it would be heavy, you'd trip over it, it could be, dangerous. I can do backstitch that looks like fucking machine level machining. And I am really proud of that. All I will say is patchwork quilting. But I got to the point where I could do a backstitch that seriously looked like it was machine done. It was so even and so perfect. It was scary shit. I mean, I'm probably a little out of practice, but it wouldn't take much to get my eye back in. And I think this is one of the things is that, if most of us have one foot that's actually technically bigger than the other, one hand that's technically bigger than the other, you don't necessarily go about fixing it, right? There are things to worry about and bigger things to deal with. And so, I do desperately feel for those who suffer so much anxiety that they can't not do something about minor issues. I mean, my nose is not entirely straight. It's straighter now than it was post-car accident. I haven't got any photos to prove it. But if you look at my nose, it now kind of does that. Not quite that drastically, but it does kind of do that. But with practice, it would get better. And you'd be surprised how quickly it would get better. If you got some shitty fabric that, go down the charity shop, find an old shirt or something, and you just practiced your stitching for, while you were watching TV or, sitting each evening. If you did some every evening, you'd be surprised how quick it would come. You really, really would. And I think, but this is the thing. There are ways to fix things and ways to fix things. And I think this is why some of the surgeries, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in America, require psychology and stuff before they used to do it, was because, well, it's a big risk for something that is non-essential, or potentially non-essential in a lot of people's eyes. And as I said, oh look, you can see this is where the dog managed to knock one off because, well, he knocked that over and it's now grouped up a little bit. I'm just going to roll this around a bit. So let's move that forward and this forward a bit and this. And how much space have I got? Not a lot actually. So let's move this up first. Like that. There we go, like that. But yeah, you know, everyone's got their own standards. Everyone has their own life sleeve. Everyone, you know, what you might spend your money on, I might not. What I might spend my money on, you wouldn't. We all have our own standards to live. But I do, having watched too much of Botch, there are people who've had so much plastic surgery to fix things that didn't really need fixing. And you've probably seen the memes that go round of celebrities, you know, plastic surgery gone wrong, where people have had work done and it's backfired and now they look absolutely awful, and it wrecked their careers, or it killed them, or it, you know, any of this. And I have to say, if you've got to a point in your life where that feels like your only option, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you feel so low in your life that 1 millimeter off your nose, that you know, that people who inject and change the colour of their eyeballs, just don't do it, man. Just don't, please. Buy some fucking coloured contacts. You know, you have to feel for them because they need help. They need help in finding joy and happiness within themselves, and having yet another bit chopped off never seems to bring it to them, and yet they keep trying. And did I hear that the guy who tried to become... Oh, that's right. The guy who tried to become the Ken doll is now a woman. So after spending like $1 million on becoming Ken, he's now a woman. You see, that is the sign to me that... I mean, he wasn't a bunch of chopped liver before he started. So, you know, he spent all that money to try and look like Ken from Barbie and Ken, right? And then basically once he achieved it, he was not happy and he's now transgender. Now, was he transgender while he was trying to become Ken and not admitting it? Possibly. But he put so much effort in to be quintessentially Ken. Not look plastic to look better, to look... He wanted to be, his own words were, he wanted to be a living Ken doll. Well, clearly not. Because when you made it, you still weren't happy. And to me, you know, and I'm sure many of you who do not have millions floating around in the bank, if you've spent that much money trying to look like something and it doesn't bring you joy, that's got to be really demoralizing. And I really do honestly feel for them, because what can you say or do? Yeah. a sec. Click on something. Just answering a question for somebody. I'm being nice and helpful. Hang on. Hang on, my keyboard's wobbling and it's making typing really difficult. Yeah. Being nice and helping someone else out with something that I'm not paid to do. I like to do to help. So, okay, so it's okay. So yeah, I do apologise, everybody. Someone's having a problem installing something that I am very much up for supporting and helping out with. I like the welcome wagon. It's all unofficial, as I say, I'm not paid for it, but they did jokingly say they should pay me, so you know, it is semi kind of recognised as the Liz welcome wagon. Okay, where are we at? Funny, when you ask them to show the error, they immediately stop typing, whereas they've been responding like within a second kind of thing until now, and then suddenly say, show me the error, and it's like... Monsters and memories in and out. Well, I haven't heard from work. That's always a good thing. They've got to go live today, this weekend. Hang on. Where's the window gone? There it is. I know this is going to sound really rough. If I said to you in a computer program, click on the hamburger, I would not personally find it weird if you guys, as you do not write programs necessarily, did not know. However, when you're talking to a fellow programmer or someone who tends to be one, and they don't know what a fucking hamburger is, you're kind of sitting there going, where have you been in the last, 30 years? We've had hamburgers for a while now. And they've been called hamburgers for a reason, you know. Because they look like fucking... Alright. And there is part of me that goes, if you're too stupid to follow the fucking instructions, then you shouldn't be playing with this shit, you know? But then that's Liz the intolerant for you. Oh, here's a good one for you. I had this at work this week. I wrote a patching system, as you possibly may know, and my patching thing is quite basic to a larger extent. It's not overly fancy, and it works out how many patches are needed by counting the number of lines with the name of the group at the end. You see, people like that make me sad. I mean, I can't tell you what makes it a burrito compared to maybe some of the other things, but I mean, even I know kind of roughly what a burrito is, and that's an American name for something and not the British name for it. So I mean, come on, yeah. But you know, guy at work who claims to be third line technical. Yes! Yeah, and it is. There's a... Yeah, but this... No, and this is the thing. It has been colloquially called the hamburger for a really long time. And this guy, I mean, when you click the hamburger, it gives him three options. I'm saying he because his name's Kneeboy74, so I'm going with he. It says to either activate or can. It goes. I get three options when he finally got told what the hamburger was: view documentation, remove package, or which is grayed out, or activate license key. And I had to tell him to click the activate license key when he got the error of you haven't got an active license, right? So he's done that, and he gets window to active or cancel. I click on activate, and I get the same stupid message. Did you put the key in the box? It does not let me do that. Well, if you got the activate, if you just hit fucking paste, my man, it would have gone in the box. He said, wait, okay, that needs to be called out as put the key in here or something like the blank box to the left of activate is too vague. You've just said, I want to activate a key. Hang on, I need to go and get the email it comes from. Unread, and it comes from. Well, you see, this is my problem. This is what I do for a living, and I deal with people like this all day. And this is why I'm just really not got any go left, because people like this suck the death out of you. I mean, he didn't take the hint when I said, I'm sure that the guy who wrote it will take that as feedback and confess. I didn't find it vague to be when I said I want to activate a key sent by email and there was a box and it says activate, but I'm also weird. And he goes, and I said, did you get the email when you bought it? And he goes, I have no emails. Well, did you... But as you say, Christy, people like this, they suck the will to live out of, well, they can take you on your most enthusiastic day and reduce you to staring at the wall and dribbling. Because it almost... I've always said, and I know we've talked about it on the stream before, about the deliberately stupid people, right? People who... almost, and I don't know whether it is, well, there are deliberately stupid people. So this is the one of the, like, so cross and twist, this is, you know, left over right, right over left. Do you understand? Yes, they say. And then they turn around and go, I didn't understand a word of that. And you're like, well, you were given the opportunity. You told me you understood. And now you're blaming me for not explaining it to you. You told me and you had the opportunity to say, no, I found that confusing, or no, I don't really see how that works. You didn't say nothing, and they are the people I term deliberately stupid. But then there are the group of people who, I swear it's deliberate, but I can't prove it, who almost seem to find the wrong end of the stick on purpose. If there is a way of, you say, right, the end with the thread attached, well, but this end hasn't got any, well, then that's not the right end, dipshit. Okay. get back to doing something more useful. What time is it? I can eat and play Monsters and Memories, so it's not too big of a deal to me. Because, of course, one of the things that's going to make you laugh then is that despite helping a man who clearly is beyond all humanity, when I play Monsters and Memories in just under an hour's time, it's exactly what I'll be doing. I will be helping people who are too stupid in many occasions, who can't read the thing in front of them, who didn't look, didn't read, didn't... I will be answering their questions. I've even got buttons for it. Buttons explaining where this is, where that is, where the other is. So, for example, I have where the bank is, how to talk to vendors, how to talk to players, where to find the guild people, how to ask and talk about quests and things, the fact that there is no map or sense directions, how to tell which way is north when there is no compass, where the Tradesville vendors are, where the leatherworker guy is, where the malachite is for the mages who for their pets, because it's right underneath you, you blind fuck. What food bees' pets will like, where the various class spell sellers are. I've got buttons for all this shit because people don't pay any attention. So, for example, when you start, you get a character and there's a note in your pocket. You look at the note and it says, "Hi, welcome to insert class name here," kind of thing. "Come and see me, I am at." And if you turn round to the guard who's right next to you, because you start next to a guard, and say, "How do I get to?" they will fucking tell you. Now, there are things it won't do. So if it says, "Go and see Joe Bloggs," and you say to a guard, "Where is Joe Bloggs?" he looks at you like you grow a head, because he doesn't know where everybody is. But the dude who said to go and see Joe Bloggs, if you say to him, "Where do I find that Joe Bloggs?" he'll go, "Oh, Joe Bloggs hangs out here." I mean, sometimes you do have to question the intelligence of many of our fellow humans. Because, like you say, if you've been there before, if you've done this shit before, this is not new. Now, you may have been a little overwhelmed the first time and you might have some questions, but most of the time, just do as you're told. When they say go and sit and wait, go and sit and wait. If they say to you don't eat beforehand, don't eat beforehand. I mean... Oh no, apparently he goes, "I've been charged twice," and I go, "Did you click twice?" And he goes, and apparently he's now changed his mind and he actually, we can feel better now. He goes, no, I'm a moron. Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, hun. Never mind, I used the pay in 4 option, so it shows 2 payments. Well, I don't know what the fuck he's on about. Oh my god, I'm a dumbass. Yes, dude, you are. My dear dude, you entirely are a dumb ass, you know? But I'm not going to disagree because I can't bring you. I mean, normally I go, no, it's an easy mistake to make. Not on this one, I'm not. No, this one is a dumbass. You're right. Yeah. Maybe not for that, but yeah, you are. Yeah. Cruel and cold-hearted, maybe, but yeah, you are. I mean, we, the crafting community, who unlike myself, who are not necessarily computer-minded, we look down upon you because you are down, dude. You are distinctly very far down in the intelligence order. Maybe he is the best graphics dude in the history of the world, and he will do things with this product that I never could. But I doubt it. He'll be back. Yeah. Language barrier is always a problem. And I mean, we've got people at work, despite what we do, which I'm not against. I have no problem. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you speak. I really, really don't. As long as you do your job well, I don't fucking care. I don't care if you're green and believe you're a fairy. But we do have some people who English is not their first language. Don't care. But what I do care is when you give them clear instructions and they can't follow it. Oh, okay. Were they just being a prick because they wanted it said to them like this because that way they could pretend that there was a language barrier even though there wasn't? Or is it because you weren't officials and you must be talking shit? Because I get annoyed by stuff like that. Just because I'm not employed there doesn't mean I'm wrong, you know? I mean, I did it when I was in hospital after my bowel removal thing. I was helping everyone in the room. I was helping the nurses. I'm not a nurse. I've no training. But I can follow logic and I'm not stupid. And I got thanked by the nurses a lot because I was so helpful. And they weren't being facetious. They weren't, playing down to make me feel better. They genuinely meant it. The doctor said the same. He said, everyone said how great you were, how helpful you were, how you did this and how you did that, and that you saved them all this effort, and you were really good, and you kept an eye on everybody, and, it was because there's fucking nothing better to do. But, all of these things, it is sometimes difficult when people will dismiss you because you're female. People will dismiss you because you're not employed there, even though you've done it more times than the people. Maybe it could be the person at the desk's new and you're not, and you know where everything is and they don't. But because you don't work there, you must be lying. You must be wrong. How dare you say that to me? And it's kind of like, it is quite draining and tiring for people too, because as a crafty person, we are generally crafty because we like to do things for other people. We like to make good things. We like to take a problem of I'm cold and turn it into a sweater or a jumper or a cardigan or a blanket. We like to solve things. We are resourceful people. And when you come across someone who is not, it's like painful, man. This is, I was due to have a boss's boss chat today, and he tried to book it for after I would normally leave work. So it's happening on Monday now. But one of the things I want to talk to him about is the fact that the people I'm working with, I was saying about my patch thing, right? I'll finish that one and that will make more sense to you. So my patch thing, you run a command to say, what are you going to install as part of the patches? And it goes, I'm going to do a load of work. And then it goes, this will be installed from here. This will be installed from here. So you count the from here bits, right? So if there's, you could arguably count the lines, but you can't really tell where it starts and finishes. But what you can do is count the bit at the end that says, because people can add other places to install from, but we don't patch that. So you count the bit that we provide at the end. But on a particular occasion, one particular server was reporting that there were 2 patches, but couldn't do it. And the guy said to me, why is it saying that? And I said, because And I showed him the line. I said, this is the error message. And it says, I cannot contact the name of it, bloody bloody blah. Nothing can be installed from bloody blah. And I said, because this appears twice and this is the normal list and we count these bits at the end. I don't get it. Well, then fuck off. If you can't understand that I'm counting this and that appears in there twice, which is why it says 2. I hope you're not teaching your child to count. 2, 4, 6. Is the short, you know, it is that moment when you go, and you've got children and you're going to teach them to count. Oh goodness. I'm sure they were just having a dumb moment. I'd like to think they're having a dumb moment, but they have a few, so maybe not. Right, I know I haven't done the most lace making today, but at least I showed up this week. That's always a bonus. I'm going to go and do some dog things before Monsters of Memory. Order some food. Eat some food maybe. I don't need to patch, so because I've done that, that's a good thing. It has been wonderful talking to you all, as always. As you know, I do love hearing from all of you. I'll stop yawning now. I've noticed that. Hang on. Put it back. No worry, Tench. It's good to see you as always. Thank you, everybody. Though sometimes I'm just too tired, and I was really annoyed with myself for not streaming last week. But at the same time, I've had long days during it since, but I do because I do enjoy making my net curtain. I want to see the end. I want to see it made. I really, really do. But there are just so many times that I haven't got the energy to do anything. And although if I was making lace without you all watching, it's actually quite surprising how it's just an additional layer. It's not a drain, but it's one more thing to talk out loud rather than just think about it. So that if someone wanders in, they don't just come across like deathly silence or something, right? And I am quite conscious that I probably talk about stuff I probably shouldn't, or that, you know, most people would say, well, that's a bit personal. Why would you say that? Because I don't know what else to say is the short answer. Because my life's that boring that there isn't a lot else. And so, yeah, I do struggle with it. And I think sometimes when I finish streaming, I am really, really tired. Not because what I've done is tiring. Not because talking and listening to you is tiring. It's just that one extra humanity layer that, well, frankly, I don't do a lot. So, because I find it quite draining. So, you know, it is, I do feel bad that I didn't do last week. But I do thank you for coming this week. I will be back, if not before, next week. Well, it's not that. It's more of the trying to... well, I suppose it is. It's the trying to articulate something to a bunch of people that, while I know you all reasonably well, I can't see you. You don't get the cues. You don't... Not that I'm very good at picking up any on any of that shit anyway, but, you know, there's literally no cues. And obviously you can type and then it will talk in my ear while I'm talking, which is quite distracting. Are you all right there, dog? And then there's dog things, and you know, it is just one extra layer of effort. Whereas if I was doing it on my own, I'd probably have the TV on with some shit that I've seen 20,000 times and that I'm not paying any attention to, and I can sit and swear and curse if I need to when I've stabbed myself with something or dropped something. Oh dear God, building the cross stitch frame thing is so much more complicated than it looks. And so, you know, I did that before, which was stupid because that's quite tiring, because as I say, trying to hold 3 things and tighten it and then realizing that actually you put that on the wrong way around or whatever is kind of annoying. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that first. I'd have had a bit more effort, which is probably why I was yawning at the start. But it is now time for tea. It is time to prep for Monsters and Memories. If you join Monsters and Memories, I've got a feeling they've said there'll be 3 servers in the end. Maybe. But I'm not quite sure. I'm sure they said there was going to be a new server today. But I'm not sure which server I'm going to be on. If it's there, it is likely to be Crivia. Just go with the one that starts with, looks and sounds a bit like Monsters and Memories is a MMO style game that is recreating the feel and lifestyle of an MMO from back in the day. It is a classically designed MMO with low poly, with grind, with all the things that we fell in love with MMOs back in the day. And it is a indie MMO who are refusing your money. Unlike everybody else who goes, hey, we're kickstarting some shit. Thinking of many of the games that I've put money towards. Pantheon, Cycles of Leucemia, Embers Adrift, some other shit. These people do not want your money. They are not taking money. They are intending to go early access around about June, I think it is. And in June, you can pay towards playing the game. Until then, it is absolutely free. monstersandmemories.com. Let me put a fancy link in for you. Hang on. I'll actually go get one just to make sure I don't spell it wrong. Oh, it should do, yeah. Hang on, monstersandmemories.com. Hang on. For those who are not confident in my pronunciation, so hang on. Look out for Liz Biscuits, because for some reason Liz the Wiz came over, or Liz Kimber came over as sounding like biscuits, so I have forever been Liz Biscuits. And I will be there in OOC answering questions on Crivia, or most likely, unless they've got rid of Crivia. I can't tell you the name of my character because, well, I've got 25 of the fuckers and I'll be on one of them. Maybe even bouncing between a few. But I will be answering questions in OOC until I lose my shit, and then I'll go quiet for a bit, and then I'll come back and answer some more questions. Depending on how annoying the questions are, or depend on how quickly I lose my shit. The first few times I did it, it was fairly slow, but then there weren't quite so many people. Last time it took about 24 minutes. But that starts in about half an hour, and 37 minutes. And it is, it may not be your bag. Now, they are openly admitting that this game is not going to be for everybody, but it is for me. I am currently enjoying it. Now, obviously, they may make changes that make it less me. It is not designed for solo people like myself, but I'll fucking manage it. I'll get there. There may be stuff I never get around to doing. That doesn't bother me. As long as I can log in and do my own thing, I will be happy. It is not really about raiding. It is more group orientated, so you don't need to do the 2 o'clock in the morning, wait for 60 people to have their lunch, and then the main tank gets called off to have dinner by his mum. Don't need to worry about that. 6 of you will be fine for the worst case scenarios. But it is a good laugh. It changes so much between plays. And they've done a lot of work on it. They've got a good team of about 30 people now, I think, with graphics artists, most of which you can watch them on Twitch here. So there's a whole pile of them that stream what they do. Not sure the orcs are in yet, but there is lots of camping. We've got the Ashira. They're scrawny little fuckers who frankly are mean, and deserve all they get. But there's craft skills. There's quests. There's camps. There's drops. There's all the things that you know and love in an MMO. Except for a map, because, well, early EverQuest and Co didn't have maps, so no map. But there's also no sense heading, so you have to use what you'd use in reality. So like the usual phrase I'll say is look up, because, well, up, there are stars or sun and shit. That'll tell you. There are, I mean, bear in mind it's not completely finished yet, so you can be, there is minor illusion for enchanters, and so you can be a crate or a fire pit or something. You can be various different races as an enchanter because you've got illusion. There are various animal forms depending on which class you are. So for example, as a beast lord, I think as a beast, it's not beast lord, as a beast master or whatever, you can you get to be a rat. Sorry, not Kelt, we get to be rats. I don't like rats either, but you get to be a rat. It's very much like early EverQuest, but if it was, it's almost like the era of EverQuest, but not EverQuest. So it's like a different planet of humans in the EverQuest kind of era. So there is might and magic. There are gods, which will play a thing in it. There are currently 2 starting cities. There's not good and evil, but there is good and evil. There are a fuckload more classes than EverQuest. And sadly, only humans can be an Inquisitor. Bite me. I am an ogre. 99.9% of my characters are ogres, and ogres finally get their just desserts in that we can be a lot more in Monsters and Memories than we ever were in many of our fellow worlds. In that, I asked the guy who runs it is a bloke called A Loving Robot. He's been in channel here before. A Loving Robot, who's called Sean. I asked Sean fairly early on, will I be able to be a big ogre wearing a dress and picking flowers? The answer is yes, and I do. So you can be a big hairy ogre walking around picking flowers because you get herbalism, and you go reaping the little flowers out of the ground. And I've just realised my camera's hung. I'm putting my hand underneath it and I can't see it. So I don't know whether you can see my hand or not. But my OBS is not showing it. And you and because if you're an elementalist, you can wear a dress, so you can be a big hairy ass bloke wearing a dress picking flowers. So there is something for everybody. There are little green goblins. Greenies are nice. They're a bit goblin-y, but they're all right. Everyone hates gnomes and dwarfs. What else do you need? But people will like, right, the one thing that is different to most MMOs, if you got a pile of crap in your bag or in your inventory and you go and sell it, not everyone wants your shit. The best example, a butcher does not want your smelly old sock. He has no interest in your smelly old sock. You have to find someone who wants a smelly old sock. Now, the honest answer to that is you only really need to know 2 or 3 different people. But principles, the butcher does not want rusty armor, clanky weapons, and similarly the blacksmith will not want a steak, right? I mean, although he does eat, he doesn't want a steak, right? it's that kind of process. You have to find the right vendor, and that is one of the big things that people get a bit bent about because, oh, it's really shit, I haven't got time. Well, but you actually don't need to go that far and that many people to actually cover 99% of stuff, so worry not. But I've got buttons, I answer questions, lots of people answer questions. If Perfect's around, he'll also be answering questions. He usually hangs out on Crivia too, so between us we usually answer a lot of questions. But he wasn't there last time, so maybe you got a bit fed up with it because it does drain you down. But it's technically been called a stress test tonight. So what usually happens for stress tests is they get everyone to log in. They try and pin you in, say, one zone to start with, try and overload the server a bit. Maybe it goes well, which it did last few times. And then they'll just let you play for the rest of the evening. That's usually how it goes. There have been a couple of times where it's been for a maximum of 4 hours and then they turn it off. Because you've got to remember, they are not taking our money. It costs them to do this out of their own pockets. So, you know, much as we all want to play it all day and we all want to do this all day and, you know, and all weekend and all the rest of it, I'm not going to promise you that it's going to be there for anything longer than, you know, a while, right? But, go and play it, see if you like it. If you like it, like the rest of us, hang around some more. Hang on, playtest announcements. During the stress test, we ask that you play the game normally, right? Blah, 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 go around doing shit. So this, if you're unable to play during the stress test portion, so there you go, they're already planning. Stress test starts at 6 o'clock, my time. Initially, to hang around in Night Harbour, which is the core starting village for most people. Hang around there if you can't really play, but you can leave it running. They'd appreciate it. But it does say if you're unable to play during the stress test portion, so clearly there is going to be more than just the stress test. So it doesn't say how long it's going to run for, but it is starting in, well, 28 minutes. Go and download it. Here you go, hang on. Copy link. Paste. Anyway. Go and download that. Run the update. It'll take a little bit. And I shall see a lot of you, hopefully, in 28 minutes. If you can't, worry not. But they'd appreciate it, and so would I. So, because I like to be helpful to them. So, please join me in Monsters and Memories. You never know, even if it's not normally your bag, maybe this is. And as I said, right now, it is free. So, oh, can't do that one. Okay. What has she said? Right. But yes, maybe I shall see you there. As I say, look out for something called Liz Biscuits or Liz. There is a Biscuits, that's not me. I am Liz Biscuits. So yeah. And that was my stomach telling me to order food. So take care, everybody. I don't tend to stream it. You can stream it if you want. It's an open test. They allow these things. But yeah. I hope to see some of you in there. Take care. Bye-bye.